ForeignPolicy.com has a heartbreaking feature story out on the U.S. bombing of the Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. And it's a real slap in the face and a reminder that what we do is real. It's easy to intellectualize this stuff, but when you see the results of, in this case, our government's actions, if you're an American, well, then it hits home. So here are some of the victims of the attack. Abdul Maqsood was 22 years old and worked as a patient information focal point. He was known to be a good cricket player. He began his career in the hospital as a daily worker and was proud when only a few months later he was recruited as a permanent member of the team. Maqsood showed dedication to his job and felt that working in the hospital was an honor. Then we have 22-year-old Abdul Nasir. He was a hospital cleaner. He was born in Kunduz province, where he'd been working for Doctors Without Borders since July 2013, and was described by those who knew him as a good person and incredibly hardworking. He was always ready to contribute and went above and beyond what the job demanded. He was very polite and known to assist both patients and their caretakers. He was often sitting or standing close to the door of the ICU, the intensive care unit, whenever someone entered, and he was faster than anyone else to help. We have 29-year-old Abdul Salam. He's described as very friendly and easygoing. He was a nurse in the operating room. He was one of the most passionate workers amongst the Kunduz Trauma Center staff, as well as being an experienced OT nurse. He also possessed a diploma in pharmacy. In his free time, he liked playing cricket and buzkashi, which is Afghanistan's national sport. During the heavy fighting in the week that led up to the attack, he allegedly barely slept and worked long hours to help his people and colleagues as much as he could. He was married, and he leaves behind 2 kids, of which the youngest was only 40 days old. Dr. Aminullah Bajawari was a 32-year-old father and emergency room doctor. He worked the whole week before the attack and felt personally responsible for any patients that might not recover as a result of him not being there or him sleeping. Dr. Amin was someone that could always be relied on in the ER with extensive medical knowledge and a willingness to learn new things and a kind approach to his patients. It was his dream to become a neurosurgeon at a time when the lack of neurosurgeons in Afghanistan meant children were dying for lack of proper treatment. He was also a teacher at the Kunduz University and was highly respected by his students. Now, I'm going to give you one more here. It's a very long list, and I'll leave a link in the description box where you can go directly to the Doctors Without Borders website and look at their memorial page for all these people where they explain things like this about each and every casualty. But I'm going to give you one more here, and I'm warning you, this is graphic here. This is one of the pictures that ForeignPolicy.com released yesterday. This is Bainazar Muhammad Nazar. He was a security guard whose job was to protect jewelry shops and currency exchanges about a mile from his house. He lived in a poor village, and he wasn't paid very well. His family wanted him to move to Iran because they knew that there was fighting going on in their area between the Afghanistan government forces and the Taliban, and they didn't want to be caught in the crossfire. He decided no, that he wanted to stay where he grew up, and he and his family stayed there. He was 43 years old, he had 3 kids, and he was shot by the government forces in the leg when he went to check on his stores. He felt responsible. His wife told him, "Don't go, there's fighting going on now." This was when the Taliban briefly came back into Kunduz and took it over. So he went anyway to do his job and to do his duty, and he was shot in the leg. He was shot in the thigh, to be exact. And it actually was, believe it or not, a Taliban guy who helped him get on some sort of vehicle, and then they took him to the hospital. And they did one surgery on his leg, and he needed one more, but after the first surgery, the signs were looking good. He still had functionality in his leg, looked like he was going to make a full recovery. Again, they wanted to keep him to do a second surgery, and as he was waiting for the second surgery and as he was in his room, that's when the U.S. airstrike hit, and he died. And then you have that powerful picture there that shows you that what we do is real. Now, a lot of people will argue, well, I mean, it was a total accident, so, you can't really draw anything away from this situation. You can't make moral judgments this way or that way. It was a total accident. Well, actually, if you followed this thing closely, the evidence is much more murky than that. It's a total gray area. So, allegedly, our allies in Afghanistan told us that they thought there were Taliban guys at Kunduz. There weren't Taliban guys at Kunduz. It is a hospital that treated everybody, no questions asked, which is the right thing to do, but there were no Taliban guys there. But the U.S. allegedly listened to the Afghan forces who told us to do that. We have cockpit recordings where they knew that it was a hospital, and they were like, are we really supposed to hit this? And then they hit it anyway. And this is the result right here. And what I fear is the same thing that we've seen in the case of funerals, where we know, because we have the evidence in those cases, that we attacked funerals when we knew there were women and children and civilians there to get one or two Taliban guys who were at the funeral of a Taliban operative. And I maintain that that's something that's quite different from just collateral damage. Collateral damage is you're trying to get the wrong guys, and then you end up getting some civilians totally by accident. This looks more like it's calculated. We know we might get a few of the right guys, but a lot of the wrong people are going to die, and they do it anyway. That's a grayer area, and that's not just collateral damage. There's no moral culpability there. That's a tremendous problem. We've done it with funerals. We've done it with wedding processions that we thought were, the Taliban was involved. But again, think about it. So if it's a wedding procession, but you think the Taliban is involved, well then, what do you do? Do you're going to kill a bride, right? You're going to kill some innocent people. Now, I'm sure that in some cases they were just totally confused and they didn't think it was a wedding in any way, shape, or form. But in some cases, they thought a Taliban wedding? Again, they do it for funerals in that circumstance. We know that 90% of our drone strikes kill the wrong people. This is internal government documents going back and forth with each other where they openly talk about this. We have people who work the drones who said we called them fun-sized terrorists as we attacked children. We attacked children, and some of the drone operators said we had people who were doing bath salts and they were alcoholics, and they said, no, we want to kill the fun-sized terrorists, and we got to cut the grass. We got to get them while they're young. So this isn't, my point is, guys, you can't stop looking at it as we are the good guys by definition, they are the bad guys by definition. I don't want to know about it, I don't want to see it, I don't want to learn the facts, because in this case, your tax dollars are paying for it. So you have the ability and the responsibility to say, stop. Not with my money, not in my name, and don't make us less safe, because this is going to create more radicals, no doubt about it. I mean, I think when you hear about the kid who was 40 days old and his dad died, who's that kid going to turn to? And remember, our side in Afghanistan, they're not great people. We covered the story from the New York Times, the report where some of our soldiers were fired because they dared to speak out against the child sex slaves that people on our side in Afghanistan had, our Afghani allies, because we aligned ourselves with warlords to fight against the Taliban. So, but they're both not good, and you're tolerating the grotesque and evil practices of one side to stand up against the grotesque and evil practices of the other side. But you totally overlooked to the point where they fired people for saying, this guy's fucking children, he's raping kids. There were stories of our soldiers walking into their quarters and seeing that there was a kid handcuffed to one of the beds. And command said, shh, don't say anything about it, they're on our side. But then you're not fighting for freedom and democracy, you're fighting to preserve a system of sex slavery as long as our side does it? That's insanity. That's not morality. So we must condemn this. We must try to stop this military-industrial complex and this rampant and wanton imperialism, which is a problem. It's not as simple as we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. Actions matter. Killing civilians is horrific and grotesque when they do it. It's horrific and grotesque when we do it. And we need to try to stop it.